If all your content is teaching and teaching and teaching, then you are actually training your audience just to learn from you and not to buy from you. So today we're talking about how you can create content that keeps you out of the educational trap. Let's jump right into it. If you're new here, my name is Liz and I help business owners use digital media to build their business faster. Be sure to subscribe so that you never miss any of my future content. Now, whenever I sit down with a client to discuss content strategy with them, I find that they are often leaning towards creating mostly educational content. And the reason for this is actually quite natural. Most business owners feel like they need to keep telling their audience all the different aspects to their niche to educate them in order to demonstrate that they have that expertise. So I understand the logic here, and yes, educational content is important. However, if you are mostly posting educational content, then what's going to happen is you're going to create a cycle where your audience only is learning from you and doesn't ever get trained to buy from you. This is why when many people start posting constant educational content, and it's actually good content that they feel is valuable, they really scratch their head and wonder why they're not making any sales or converting anyone into clients. And this is the reason why. So today we're going to talk about some of these common symptoms that come up so that you can ask yourself whether you are posting too much educational content too. Let's get right into it. Now, let me preface all of this by saying a lot of this depends on what your niche is. If you are in a niche where showing things step by step or teaching things step by step is actually the whole point of your niche, then of course you can absolutely ignore everything that I'm about to say. This is more relevant to people who are service providers or they offer some type of consulting or coaching or some other service like that. So that's mainly what this is geared towards. If you're a cooking show, for example, of course you have to show people step by step what you're doing. It has to be more educational content. Even then, it doesn't have to be fully educational content, and we'll actually talk about that in a future video. But really, I'm focused more on service providers and how they can avoid falling into the educational pitfall. So let's get right into it. Now, the first thing you want to do is avoid making your social media platforms like a free classroom. If you are constantly posting how-to tips and lists of how to do things and swipe carousels full of step-by-step instructions and all sorts of tutorials, then basically what it feels like for your viewer is that your feed is just full of free information that they can consume and then walk off into the sunset with. I remember there was someone that I used to follow on Instagram, and she would go live every day for about 30 minutes, which is just amazing that she could even do that. So I would sit down in front of her live streams for about 30 minutes with a notepad and a pencil and actually take notes off of what she was saying because it was just such valuable content. So I was learning a ton from her. So that's basically a free classroom. Every time she launched a product or a service, I never felt compelled to buy anything from her. Because why should I? I was learning everything that I felt like I needed to know right there off of her feed for free. So be careful about that. Instead of constantly telling people how to do things, instead focus on telling them why that thing matters. Once you finish explaining to them why it matters, wrap up that content instead of going deeper into how to actually do it step by step. The viewer's brain is going to understand that if they want to really know how to do that, they're going to have to dig deeper into your brand. They're going to have to look and see what else you offer. Do you have some type of a service or some type of a book or some type of a YouTube channel or something else that gives them that information? You will already have piqued their curiosity. You will have planted the seed that that topic matters to them and it impacts them. And then they themselves will take the next steps into figuring out how to work with you so that they can now solve that thing. The next thing to keep in mind is that if you teach without giving context, it can often create like a false confidence. So what basically happens is that your viewers or your audience will consume your free content, and it might be the stuff that you are teaching to them, some educational content. They will take that and then walk away into the world and then think that they can start implementing what they have learned. Sometimes they can. Of course, we're all giving out information that we're hoping will be tactical and strategic for people. But often what will happen is that at some point in the process, they will start getting stuck. And it's really just because they don't have the bigger context of how everything fits together. Just from your 5-minute video or your 30-second reel or your 10-slide carousel, that's not enough information for them to get the entire perspective on how to actually get that thing done successfully. It's really just there to point them in the right direction. But instead, because you've given them all that education, they feel like they're now an expert to go out and do it on their own. So they will go out into the world, try to do it, get stuck, and then one of two things will happen. Either they will give up altogether and feel discouraged, or they will mentally start blaming you for it because they'll feel like you're the one that sent them down that path in the first place. So instead of that, focus more on just showing people the reasons why, the context of all of this matters. Make it clear to your audience that what you're telling them is just one tiny puzzle piece in the bigger puzzle, and that if they just go out and implement it like that, they can really get stuck in different places. I remember back in the day when I first started my business, I released a couple mini courses because back then mini courses were all the rage. So we're talking about like a little series of videos, like 4 or 5 videos, and people can opt in and just watch them for free, and then they can go off and do their thing. So I, in fact, really liked mini courses. I used to watch a lot of people's mini courses, and I thought it would be a great way to just have a lead magnet. But what I found, and my mentor told me this, but I didn't take her advice, and so I got stuck because of it. She said, if you put out a mini course and people try to do that and then they get stuck later, they will be really annoyed feeling like you're the person that got them stuck. So she never really encouraged me to do mini courses, and I should have taken that advice because that's exactly what happened. People would take my mini course, they would be very excited about it, I would get good feedback, and then 6 months later they would ask me, oh, but I tried this and this part didn't work, and I tried this and that didn't work. And it's because they didn't have the full context. They just went and implemented that tiny little thing that I mentioned in the mini course without understanding how it fit into the bigger picture of their business. So needless to say, I trashed all my mini courses because I just don't even believe in that concept anymore of giving people a tiny thing and then not giving them everything that goes along with it. So be careful about this type of a trap, because if a viewer or somebody in your audience actually has that type of a negative experience, it will actually reflect really badly on your brand. They will think that you are not trustworthy, that you sent them down the wrong path, that they wasted time, energy, and money just following your advice, and actually can really backfire. Now, another thing to consider about educational content is that it is so kind of safe. It is a risk-free zone, meaning it is risk-free for you that puts it out, and the person consuming it just assumes that they're just getting a little snippet of how to do something. The problem is, usually your personality is going to be missing from educational content because we're so focused on just teaching the topic and making it very clear and tactical that we don't really inject our personality into it. Most other forms of content are the ones that actually capture our personality, like our reels that we make, or our behind the scenes content, some of our videos, our stories, all of that type of stuff. So the reason why this is important is because people won't really buy into you as a person or as a business owner or as a brand unless they see the personality. They might walk away with the feeling that yes, you're an expert in your area, but they may not hand over the big dollars to somebody unless they actually feel a personal connection with them. That's why personality is so important nowadays in brand building. This is why building a personal brand has become all the rage in the last 5 to 10 years, because your person needs to be in the brand. It's not just about information anymore. Practically everyone in your audience knows that they can get that information somewhere. They can grab it off Google, or they can get it off of ChatGPT or off of one of your competitors. If they stick around with you for the long haul or for higher ticket services or to refer you to someone, it is going to be based off of your personality and how it rubs off on them. Do they feel like you are a person that they could work with? Could they sit across a coffee table from you and have a conversation? Would they enjoy showing up to talk to you on a Zoom call for 2 hours? These are the things that they need to understand in order to make really strong purchases with you and stay as a lifelong customer. Otherwise, yes, they might buy like a $27 thing. But if you really want to have them invest deeper into your services and into your offerings, then you have to put aside too much educational content so you can focus on content that really, really comes out from your personality. And one of the biggest pitfalls of educational content that actually your audience won't clue into until later is that sometimes it's just too much information. Have you noticed that everywhere in the world where we open up our phone or our TV or our computer, it's just more and more information that's coming at us? So when your audience and your viewer is sitting down and scrolling on your social platforms, when you are sitting down and talking to them at length about another topic, that is just one more piece of information that they now have to store in their brain or on their notepad and then wonder, when am I going to get time to implement this now? I already have 1,000 other things that I'm trying to implement. So you don't necessarily want to come off as the business owner that is just giving your audience more things to do. This is a big problem with educational content. It just becomes one more thing that weighs on the minds of your audience, feeling like now they need to go and learn this thing that you just taught them and then figure out how in the world to implement that. Instead of that, try to broaden the content a little bit more and talk about all of the different ways that that topic can impact them, the ways it's impacted you and other clients that you've worked with. Try to talk to them about what they can be missing in life without that type of information. Really, what you want to do is just highlight the topic and then get off of teaching it too much, and instead talk about everything else regarding that topic that makes it matter to them. This is how you draw that bridge between the topic and you. You basically want your viewer to see you as the connector between that topic and their success. Even if a client decides to hire you based off of all of your content, in fact, they are not going to show up at your Zoom meetings or at those coaching calls looking for information. They are going to be looking for implementation and ideas on how they can actually execute that topic. So the actual education part of it is not really what they are there for. Once you've given them that tiny snippet of education, the rest should be talking about how you are the perfect solution to help them implement that. So what I really want to leave you with in this video is that educational content is great for building awareness. It is great just to give your audience a sense of who you are, how you speak, how well you know your topic, and how well you can present it in a way that actually makes sense to them and clicks. But that's it. That is the only role of educational awareness. Authority and sales, that comes from showing different perspectives, from positioning, from messaging, from storytelling. These are the things that actually get a person to raise their hand to you. Once they understand that you're an expert, everything else is what makes them decide that you are the expert for them. So if you like this video, I hope that you will give it a like, share it off with one of your friends. Don't forget to subscribe, because every single Tuesday, I bring you a new video teaching you how you can use digital media to build your business faster. So until next time, take care.